As an esports coach, you want to be as effective as possible. But how do you do that? Oftentimes, I see esports coaches coaching on the actions alone, the things that the players are putting out, the play that they are playing, or the way they are communicating between one another inside the team. Although that is sometimes the correct way, oftentimes it is not that effective, and I want you to be more effective as a coach and have that impact that you want. So how do we get to that more impactful esports coach? That is to dig down deeper into the player and their action. So before we have that action, the output of the player, the way and the things that are observable, we need to look at their intention. Was their intention correct, or was it wrong in the first place, in order to judge that action, if it was a correct play or not? And that is how you get that information to really help this player set up himself for success. And I want you to be able to help him with it. So in this video, we will go deep into the intention so you can see if the play was correct, yes or no, even though the actions or the result was good. Because sometimes players can have, for example, in CSGO or League of Legends in the beginning, they get away with a certain play and they think, this is the way to play. But in fact, they were out of position and they got away with it and they had a little bit of luck. And you don't want that bad intention to manifest within the player or the team itself, so they adopt bad habits. You want them to be consistent and to consistently get them towards the next level. So in this video, we will go deep down into their intentions, how you can get there, and what you need to look out for in order to get the best results and most impact for you as an esports coach. So grab a pen and a piece of paper and let's get into it. What is up, guys? My name is Donny from nextlevelesports.com, the #1 platform for esports coaches and team development to help you and your team reach the next level by getting the people side of esports right. So if you clicked on this video, you're probably interested in esports coaching or team development, and thank you very much for watching. So if you haven't clicked the subscribe button yet, please do so and hit the notification bell so you'll be always the first one to get notified when a new video pops up. I always try to post on Monday, Wednesday and Friday every week so you can get the most value to become the better coach or the better player or a better team in general. So also, if you like this type of content, I really appreciate the like as well, so it gets into the algorithm and it reaches more esports related people like you as well. So thank you very much for watching this video and liking, subscribing if you did, and sit back and relax, grab your pen and piece of paper, and let's get into the juice of it. Let's talk about intentions. Intentions are everywhere and connected to every action that we human beings do. So for example, right now, you clicked on this video, you are watching it right now, but what is your intention? I make these videos with the intention of bringing you the most value to become a better esports coach, or to help you and your team reach the next level by getting more insight and information about it, getting the people side right. That is my intention. But what is your intention by checking out this video? Maybe you are, for me, a family man, just want to see how I do. Or maybe you want to check if the content is relevant for you. Or you want to be interested in esports coaching and you want to learn more about esports coaching. So everyone has a different lens towards watching this video right now. And I don't know what your intention is, but I assume it comes from a good place. So this exactly is the same as well within the esports landscape when you're playing a game, or when your team or players are playing a game if you're a coach. So even though they might look like the same characters and doing the same actions, the intention behind that action can always be vastly different. And that is very important for you to note down and to really ingrain into your mind, because that is basically a core part of impactful coaching. Because a lot of times coaches only coach on the action, and even though in some cases that is effective and can be handy in some situations, oftentimes it's not the full picture and not as impactful, because it's always about the intention. So for example, if you are watching this video for entertainment purposes, well, you're probably, if you're still in it right now, it's probably not that entertaining because it's more educational orientated. But if you're here with educational mindset that you want to learn and become a better coach, then you're probably at the right place. And the way you're watching this video and the way you're interacting with this video, maybe you're skipping through towards different chapters, all these kinds of things have different actions as well. So it's good to understand that a player, even though it might look the same as another player, the intention could always be different as well. So we have two types of intentions, the good ones and the bad ones. And the player doesn't always recognize if it is a good intention. Always assume that the player is obviously playing for the win and to provide the team with their most capabilities and their skill in order to get the right process there and to win as well. But sometimes players don't really know the difference between a good intention or a good play, or the right intention in a good play or a bad intention. So you have to coach them on it. So for example, if a player is in a certain situation and they take that risky play, they might have success, but they don't really see that it was a very risky play and it would only work 10 out of 100 times. So 10% chance that it was a good play, and at this moment it worked. So they get their positive feedback towards their brain that they are capable of pulling such plays. But in fact, if they would do the same play 100 times, they would only succeed 10 times. And that is the difference between a good intention and a bad intention. And if you ask those players about, hey, what was your goal and what were your points that you were perceiving and how did you interact with this? And then they often start to think like, oh, I was kind of out of position, but the enemy played bad and I had this opportunity, so I was kind of lucky that I could pull this play off. And then they start to realize, instead of getting the positive feedback towards their bad intentions, they start to realize that their intentions weren't that good, but they were quite a bit of luck involved as well. So that keeps them in check to see where they are in terms of development, and so they have to work harder or have to work smarter to overcome such situations, and they can be more consistent and impactful. And the other part is that the actions that they have, that can be good or bad. So the same example is true as well. So they had a good action while their intention was bad. So oftentimes I see a lot of tendency within the esports landscape that a lot of players and coaches are only focusing on actions like, yeah, that was a sick play, and do that more often. While in fact, if you add on all these facts, that it was not as good as a play as you thought it was, and it can really be detrimental for the way you coach, because you don't want the team or a specific player to develop bad habits. So that is really something to look for. And always also look for the opposite, that sometimes an execution of a play, I sometimes see players or coaches really hammer down on the player or the team that it was bad, but their intention was good. So instead of giving the positive feedback for the effort that they put in, and they had the right process, but only the execution wasn't there yet, they hammer down and give negative feedback like, oh, that was such a terrible play, we need to do this, blah, 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 blah. Instead of asking the questions towards the team or the player in particular that, hey, what was the intention? Maybe they played it the right play, but maybe the team, the opponents were a bit better at that moment, or they made a misplay or mechanical misplays, and you can fix that part. So you have more information where you as a coach can have more impact on. So the mistake is coach only on actions. Sometimes you don't have the time to ask those questions, and then coaching on the things that are being observable, the things that are at hand, the action in itself are decent. They can be effective in that moment. But if you are in a practice, in a training session, in a scrim, and you can pause, or something is really happening and you want to know what is going on, pause, take the time, or in a VOD review, and ask always for the intention. So you have the full broad spectrum of information of what the action is connected towards their intention. So you know if they had a good intention or bad intention. So the good way is to always coach on the intention. Hopefully in this sort of intention introduction, you got a good grasp of what intentional coaching actually is and how that can be very impactful to add on to your coaching toolkit in order to reach that next level. Now, let's make things practical so you can be more impactful in practical and different types of situations. So when you ask the players on their intentions and their core, what it all boils down to, you understand if the intention was correct, it was good, or it was bad. And therefore, the second part is if the execution was good or bad as well. So let's take a look at this model and add more context to it. So first off, we have when the intention is good and there's a good execution. You really want to complement on the confidence, skill, effort, and the understanding of the context and right process in the game. They took the right steps and had the right mindset in order to execute and get the right results that you want from that specific action. So you want to complement them, instill their confidence as much as you can, because you as a coach, if something is going right, you want to duplicate it as many times as you want or as you can, because when a player is doing the right thing, you want him to do it the right thing all the time. And you do this by instilling confidence, giving that compliment, and helping him to also make his own framework and his train of thought consistent as well. So sometimes a player can have good intentions and good execution, but the player itself or another player or the coach doesn't see it, and because they maybe are doubting about their own intentions. They have fear of like, oh, it worked well, but maybe it was good, I tried my best, but did it work out? Is it exactly how I should play it? And if there's no feedback from you as a coach, this beautiful moment of learning or the perfect way in order to handle this specific situations goes lost, and that is not what we want. So be wary of when the intention is good and execution is good as well, so give compliments. So then we scooch over to the right, and then we have a bad intention but we have a good execution. So this is really something to look out for, and it can be dangerous for players in order to get into that positive feedback loop while their intention is bad. And now we're talking about risky plays that probably like 7 out of 10 times are not the way to play, or 8 out of 10 times to play, or maybe even more than that. And in specific situations, player had basically luck, or it was more accident that it happened with different factors. Maybe the enemy played bad, or they misplayed, or something was called or not understood, and they did something on their own. And even though the execution was good, their intention was bad. So if you don't want to copy this same intention like 100 times, because the odds are that 9 out of 10 times there would be a different outcome in this specific play. So you want to be aware of this as well as a coach, so you make the player aware of their own shortcomings and their wrong intention. So what do? When you're coaching practically, you don't want to make a link with self-confidence for, let's say, oh, good job, that was such a good, insane good play, but you want to express like, okay, it was a good result, but let's take a look at the situation. Here you were out of place, you didn't look at this piece of information and the facts that were available. So actually you were at a very risky spot at this particular moment in time, and you didn't notice it. Even though you got away with it, you got actually quite lucky because the enemy misplayed, or they didn't punish you for that play. And they start to think at that moment like, oh yeah, probably I see it right now, you're probably right. So therefore, in the extent of it, you want to practice the right process. So what is the right process in that way? So you take the player by hand and go through the process. So if you are engaging in this particular situation or this particular spot, what are you seeing? What information you're looking at? Oh, I was maybe only looking at players that were in front of me, or I heard some footsteps, or I thought Harry and on the communication line said this, so I executed on that. And then you know the information and the things that they use in order to make that action, what they perceive, and then you can help them with the process. So if you're in such situation, or always look at the map every 5 seconds so you know where the enemy is or where your teammates are, or 3 seconds before you make a play, ask or speak out your intentions so your teammates know what you are up to and what they can expect of you. If you would have done these steps, you wouldn't have been in this position and you would become more consistent and up your results eventually. So this is a good way to help with when the execution is good but the intention was bad. And this is probably one of the hardest things to look at, because we observe something as being good, but from time to time, when you get a sense like, does this player really understand what we're doing here? Or you see one player or maybe a duo or particular players having a good execution, but then 2 or 3 same type of contact situations they are misplaying. But you're thinking like, oh, I thought they understood it properly enough, but they're making the same mistake over and over again now a couple of times. So that is obviously a cue for you as a coach to jump in and ask for their intentions and to go deep into the process to get things right. So that is number 2. So we move over to the intention, when the intention is good, and then when there's bad execution. So this can be hard as well. And this is more so time for when you're doing reflection or VOD review, because you have more time for this. So when there's a misplay, you want to ask those questions like, did you took the right proper steps in the process that you made? So you know where the player is coming from. So you first want to compliment them on the effort of trying, that they're doing the right intention. And you want to also think like, okay, you did it well, and that is good, because if we keep practicing on this specific point, you will be able to handle this type of situation, or maybe throw this type of utility, or you have to communicate this a little bit more, but everything is at its place in order to succeed the next time. So for you to practically help in this kind of situation, you want to look for possible exercises to train that execution. So for example, in League of Legends, if there's a mid lane miscommunication in the mid lane of League of Legends, and the execution was not there, but the intention that he came from the jungle and the mid laner called for help and he came to his lane, but they misplayed on that flash, or they both burned their flash or did something crazy that was out of place at the moment. Most of the time the players will see it as well, but it's good for you as a coach to also notify the process, because sometimes players don't view the good intention behind it because there was a misplay in the execution part. They sometimes think, oh, this works so bad, it doesn't work with the jungle and the mid lane, or specific communication part between 2 players in Counter-Strike or in Rocket League, like it's not working out, so let's try something different. Although the intention and the process was good, the execution was not there. So sometimes 90% went well, but only that single misplay didn't get the results that they want. But a lot of times I see players or teams fixing or trying something a lot different, and they have to build up everything again, although they could focus maybe 1 or 2 points and get into like 5-minute discussion, and it will work 100% of the time. So be wary of this and take time to ask questions in reflection to really understand the situation if the intention was good, but sometimes the execution was bad. Then last but not least, we also have the information sometimes that the execution was terrible and the intention was bad. Now you really have this full information, because sometimes we think or overestimate what a player is capable of, and sometimes they are like god stars in a specific place, but they can be terrible for this tiny specific thing in terms of communication or rotations or anything else, but they don't see it that way, or it goes under the radar. So it's also good for you as a coach to really look at when there's a bad intention and a bad execution. So you want to discuss the results in that regard, but don't make a link with this confidence, because oftentimes when there is a bad intention and a bad execution, the player obviously 9 out of 10 times didn't understand what you wanted to in that particular situation, how he should handle that situation, or he doesn't have the proper process or steps that he can follow, and he's basically pretty lost, and he's just trying to autopilot on a specific thing or play. So in that way, look for possible exercises to train the right intention and execution. So this can be difficult in training or practice situation in a more sterile environment, let's say a practice tool, because every type of context is different. But you can also give him task and the right process with him, talk with him what the right process is, and then let him apply the next game that they are playing, or they try to set up a specific situation. For example, in League of Legends, when there is a misplay in top dive and the intention was not there and a bad execution as well. So make an exercise where they at least once in the game, they try to dive the top lane if the context is there. So they are wary what they need to do now, so they can have also good and positive experience as well. Sometimes it can also be like a mechanical misplace and the intention, because sometimes player can really puzzle the pieces correctly in the right place. And sometimes saying and making players aware of their bad intentions and their bad executions is enough. But don't assume that it's your word against them. Actions speak louder than words. So ask the questions, go into the intention, and then look for the right execution as well. So this is a practical model for you to take away as a coach, in-game leader, or anyone else that find it important to give more powerful and impactful feedback towards players in reflection moments like VOD reviews or anything else. So you can also like print screen this, put it somewhere so you can grab it if you are struggling with this, or you think it can be an impactful skill to have as a coach. I really believe this is one of the most important skills to have as a coach, because you will really understand so much more of your players and their intentions and actions, and you can really find that sweet spot where you can have that impact that changes a lot. So this is just the model for coaching on the intention. A quick summary of coaching on the intention. So you want to coach on the intention as much as you can and stay away from coaching on the observables and actions alone, because that's not sufficient enough. You only coach on the actions when you are short on time and you really don't have the time to really ask those questions and to get deep with the player. Even though you might need sometimes 1 minute, if it's not possible, then sometimes coaching on the action alone is good enough. So focus all your time and effort as much as you can on coaching on the intention. And when you have that intention in place and you understand it, also ask the question on what is the player perceiving? What did you look at in order to execute on this intention? Was he looking at the minimap? Was he listening towards his players? What was the action in front of his face that made him decide on the action in itself? Because you need the intention and the perception at first, because the execution is then more natural, because it's too complex for the mind and body to execute it and to really take it apart and only look for specific play and execution. So for example, what some players do is like, oh, in this particular situation, you have to call for this. Or in this particular situation, you should have done this particular skill, or throw this utility, or turn around and then make this move. Although it might sound logical and the player can understand it, it's very hard to duplicate with ever-changing complex situations that you are in. So in order to be the most effective is have the intention, then the perception, where is he looking at? And because when a player is looking at something and they got the right information, the execution will follow. And if the execution is not there, don't be afraid, because it's still the right intention. They're having the good process. They only need to focus on execution and practice it. So you can use a practice tool, for example, to focus on a specific mechanic or that thing, but you want to focus as much on lively and context and complex related things as possible. So for example, if you're playing League of Legends and there was a bad intention and bad execution for a topside dive, for example, you want to set up probably for the next match or your next scrim. So if the context of the game allowed, we want to focus on the top dive again, but now follow the right steps and having the right perception of the things that we need to look out for. And then the action should unfold for itself, or you have the right practice in order to execute properly. So also be wary that training on mechanics is not enough for ever-changing complex situations. So you can go to the practice tool and just click with your champion to stage tower dives, but it's not the same with a bot or something, because an actual player at a high level is always way smarter than a bot, and you cannot really duplicate that intention. You can focus on your mechanics, or it helps you with sometimes mindset or get some anxiety there, so you get more confident. It helps, but if all that is already in place with confidence and mindset, then it doesn't really help. You have to have real life complex situations in order to thrive and really develop your team and the player. A quick, easy 1 to 3 step is first to ask for the intentions. So ask for the player goals with their intention. Hey Harry, I saw this specific play, so what was your goal by executing on this? Well, it was really good because I thought and I saw that the team needed more an aggressive play, so intention was to play more aggressive. So, okay, it sounds good, Harry. What did you saw in the play? So I saw a small spot or a small gap into the enemy defenses, and I thought if I have this perfect timing and I can sneak in, then I can make a good play. It's a bit risky, but given the fact that my team was backing up, I felt confident that I could move forward and make this play. Okay, so you felt confident as well, but what else did you feel? Well, I felt confident as well, but also a little bit rushed and maybe a bit hesitant at first, but then I remembered the talk that we had before, and then I went through with it and I made the play regardless. So I instantly changed my mindset and I went for it. So now as a coach, you have the full broad picture of the intention as well of this particular player, Harry. And you can compliment him on his confidence, his skill, and that he followed the right process and took in the right pieces of information to make that play. And that is what matters. So you can compliment him and have that impactful learning moment for you, for the player, and the team as well. And that is the end of this video. I really brought you a lot of value so you can impact your team and players even more as a coach. And if you are struggling with anything about intentions or you have any questions, please comment down below. And if you want to watch more of these videos, there's probably a video right here in the corner that's recommended for you. So be sure to watch that as well, because it's helping you to become a more impactful coach as well. So if you like this type of videos and you really like this type of content as well, please consider liking and subscribing, and also hitting the notification bell so you'll be always one of the first that got these types of content about improving yourself, about coaching, team development, and teams and players as a whole. So thank you so much for watching once again, and see you guys next time. Bye bye.